I'm Theo.
And I'm Juliet.
And this is Apologies Accepted.
We offer an entertaining look at some of the big issues in history by examining public apologies of the famous and infamous.
We're looking at politicians, serial killers, actors, and you.
Send us a public apology you would like to make, and we'll read it on the air and give you a chance to redeem yourself, or just get some guilt off your shoulders.
We're here for you. Once a week, maybe more if you're really, really sorry. Everybody.
This is Apologies Accepted, the podcast.
The podcast.
And I am not Theo.
And I am not Juliet. I'm not.
We're not each other. Today I want to know what's shaking bacon.
Well, what's shaking bacon is a couple of things. One, have you ever gotten one of those spam text messages where it comes through with a name?
Never.
Oh, wow. I've been getting not a ton of them.
Of course I have.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's like, Patrick, have you thought about doing whatever?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean? Yeah.
Exactly. I had one, I don't know, a couple of months ago, and it was coming from Mrs. Sexy was the name, right? And it said something like, hey, I've been thinking about you, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so I do like to fuck with people.
Yeah.
And it didn't occur to me that this was a bot, right?
Oh, I see.
But, you know, whatever. So I replied back and it just said, I'm gay, right? And then I got a reply to that, which was, what that mean, right?
What that mean?
And so I was like, oh, great, this is a real life person. And so I said, it means I'm a police officer. Nothing. I didn't get anything after that. Yeah,
that was
but
the
they
end of
were
the
like,
conversation.
they didn't care. So I got one last week, and it was from Eileen, and it said, and this was pretty good. It said, I lost your number at the party. How the fuck are you texting me if you lost my number? I mean, come on.
Who would that work for?
That I got zip. So I thought about texting back and saying, oh, great, I'm really glad you sent me a text. Where's that money you owe me? But I didn't. I stopped. Yeah, so I would say that's what Shaken Bacon, except I went to a party on Friday night with
to a party?
I did. Well, it's 6 people, but anymore, that's a party. And 6 people, yeah, I know them all, everybody's vaccinated, blah, blah. But still, yeah, kind of unsafe. And we were hanging out, and I knew we were going to be doing our episode today, the subject, which I don't know, why am I keeping a secret? It's in the title. So I knew we were doing Awkwafina and cultural appropriation. I was like, I'm going to ask people because, you know, I have my ideas, but I want to flesh them out a bit. And, you know, everybody at the party was going to be my age. So it was like, I kind of already know where they're going to fall on the spectrum, but maybe an idea will come out of all of this that I'll be able to use, whatever. It's a springboard.
Were they all white? And
everybody was white, yes. So there was that. That
so
did
white
not
Gen Xers
even occur to me. Couple of boomers.
Okay.
But, you know, people whose opinion I value. So it was like, this will be fine. This will be great. I got to the party, and somebody's granddaughter was there. Hi, Gen Z, looking right at you. And so she was talking to me, like she was talking to me. And great conversation, really fun. She was telling me about a trip to Europe. And then just sort of out of nowhere, I said, can I grab you and can I take you outside? Because I have a lot of questions I want to ask you about cultural appropriation and your stance and your thought.
Oh
and
my God.
For 3 hours, we talked about so much. And I am going to say that for anybody who is afraid of the future of the world and mankind and people are assholes anymore, and let me tell you, we're going to be okay. She was so thoughtful, so insightful, so wholeheartedly interested. And at one point, she even said, unprompted, and she's 21, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know that I should be answering these questions. You should really be asking a person of color. But I could give, and I was like, you know, when I was your age, that would never have occurred to anybody. It just would have been, here's what I think. And never would we have thought like, oh, well, maybe we're not the most informed. So so she gave me a lot of really cool little thoughts, suggestions, ideas that I'm going to throw out. And I can't wait to see what you think about them.
Okay.
So, yeah, so that's kind of that. And then my last bit is, guess who is number 220 on the comedy charts in Ireland?
What?
Apple Podcast. Hi.
Really?
Hi, Dublin.
Wow.
I know, 220.
That's amazing.
Which is amazing. We're 149 in Indonesia, which means that Indonesia loves us more.
Oh, that's awesome.
In Italy and Israel, you guys better just like step up to it. We're not on their charts at all. What other country starts with an I?
Oh, that's how you're doing it. I was like, where are we getting Italy and Indonesia?
I could tell that looks... In fairness to you, everything I say is fucking random and out of left field. So if it wasn't obvious, it's because, it's never obvious.
We have to go to Ireland. Maybe we could do a tour.
Oh, yeah. Hey, let's do that. Do you want to see the 220th most popular comedy podcast live?
Somebody
Here
might.
We are. Well, yeah.
I'm ready to go when you're ready.
That's all I got. What you got? What's shaking bacon?
Nothing. Except good news. I've lost a couple pounds, which if you remember last week, I was complaining that I'm on this program that was costing me all kinds of money and I wasn't losing any weight. But the good news is that I lost a couple pounds and I also got the medication covered by insurance, so it's not going to cost me $850 a month. Thank heavens. So that's good. Yeah, and that's really all I've been doing. I've just been, as usual, working my butt off and sleeping. And this week I did watch, as I mentioned to you, I watched Crazy Rich Asians. And we can talk about that more in the podcast, but I actually enjoyed that experience. I remember when it came out and I had a friend who wanted to see it and I was like, no, I don't want to see that, but I should have gone to see it. It would have been fun. So anyway, at least I got to see it last night at 3 a.m.
Which is probably a great time to see it because when you do things mid-sleep cycle, they could feel impactful. And so yeah, I don't know. I find when I do things like if I wake up and I do something at 3 a.m., it sticks with me the next day.
Oh, interesting. I'll have to pay attention to that and see if that's true for me too.
Yeah. If you like read an article, you can remember more of the article than, I mean, for me, like, you know, if I would wake up in the middle of the night and go study for a bit, then like, bang, that shit was stuck in my brain. Gone now. Who cares, Theo? Let's talk about Awkwafina and cultural appropriation.
Yeah, so Awkwafina started her career as a rap artist. I have to say that I had heard of Awkwafina before all this, but I didn't really know who she was or anything that she had done. So, except I think I knew that she was in Crazy Rich Asians, but other than that, I didn't have any idea. So all this is new information for me. In 2012, the first thing that she did, I think, that brought her to fame was she released a YouTube video of a song called My Vag, which was a parody of a song by Mickey Avalon, whoever he is. Is he famous? Do we know?
I was hoping you knew. It sounds like he's
I have no idea.
A rap guy?
Must be somebody. He made a song, video, whatever, called My Dick, which I watched too. And
how was that?
Whatever. Oh, just what you'd expect.
Did it feel like he was a rap? I should have Googled him or something, but I just didn't, right? Did it feel like he was an actual rapper?
He's just some dude. Just like basically some dude. I mean, it's like a novelty song kind of. And then like hers is too. And her song, her video, My Vag, they say that it's complete with her Asian gangster alter ego, which I guess she created in her youth. And I'm imagining that she's kind of shy and kind of introverted, and she had to create this alter ego to start doing some of the things that she wanted to do to get famous. And that's how she became famous. And now it's sort of bit of backlash. We'll get into that too. But she became popular in the mainstream, I guess, after portraying Pike Lynn in the global hit film Crazy Rich Asians in 2018, which seems like a really long time ago now. And she played the main character's best friend, who's a Singaporean woman who has a black scent. And when I saw the movie, I didn't really notice the black scent that much.
Which is
interesting. Did you
interesting.
have any thoughts on that?
I did not. So I saw Crazy Rich Asians on an airplane on my way to Scotland for Christmas 2018. No, probably not 2019. And let's see. Now I'm remembering it wasn't Christmas. It doesn't matter. I saw it on an airplane going over to visit my in-laws, and my mother-in-law loved rom-coms. Like, that's all she watched. Romantic comedies. I have to spell it out entirely. I can't say rom-com. I hate that. And I loved the movie on the plane, and the black scent did not hit my radar at all. And in part, that's probably because I have a sense that some countries, right, black culture is huge. Rap music is huge in other parts of all across the world, right? But that people emulate American culture and pick up the things they find fun. And I'll say foreigners, non-U.S. people. Why am I defining what a foreigner is to you? And so I just probably stuck it in that bucket of, yeah, that makes sense. I could see somebody in Singapore adopting an urban street slang style of speaking English because it's fun and they want people to know just how keyed into American culture they actually are, that they know that this is a dialect and this is a way to speak English. So whatever. Loved the movie, got off the plane, and I was like, oh my God, May, you have to see this movie. You have to watch it. And we watched it, and she did not like it. And I asked her at the time. Yeah, she was. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, it's fun.
And we were watching it the very next day, and that's not typical of me and movies anymore. If I see something I like, great, I'll watch it again in a month, maybe. And no, it was over, and I was waiting for the praise. Thank you for bringing this movie into my life and for showing me what a great, charming little film it was. And she just didn't like it. And so I was like, well, is it because they're Asian and you feel, that's immediately where I went to, and you feel like you can't relate to that? And she was like, no, it was just kind of long. And I was like, okay, all right. There you go. Sure. But yeah, so I loved it. The black scent didn't tick my radar. And if it did at all, then as I mentioned, I just put it in that bucket of, this is a thing that happens in other countries. Pick up street slang or some.
I didn't even notice the slang. I mean, I didn't notice her as being particularly slangy, and maybe I just accepted it and just moved on. But I don't know if it's because I watch a lot of TikTok or I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm not noticing people using a lot of slang because I hear it all the time on TikTok. But I'm surprised because I was watching the movie specifically to watch her performance, and I still didn't. I got sucked into the movie, and I still didn't really notice that she was using what is called by some people a black scent. So I thought that was really odd. I'll have to watch it again and actually drill down into her performance.
Now pay attention to the thing you originally were watching it for to pay attention to. Right. Yeah. I know how that goes.
So what is a black scent? So Mickey Kendall, who's an author and diversity consultant, says black scent is a term describing the fake accent racist and cultural appropriators use when they mimic black people. Black people have accents, but we don't all have the same one, and yet somehow those two groups always use the same accent when they imitate black people.
Maybe.
About the performance, I don't know. About the performance of Awkwafina in Crazy Rich Asians, culture critic Lauren Michelle Jackson wrote, Pike Lynn's flirtation with black vernacular, along with the character's general swagger, clinches the case, and another buzzword enters the frame, appropriation, a word that now commonly connotes knowing cultural theft. I guess the character did have swagger, but I don't know that I thought that was particularly black. Maybe that's, again, me just being ignorant.
I mean,
I'm not saying I'm not saying anything, but just observing.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe I don't know. Maybe I just maybe what am I going to say? See, hi. Let's talk about something different. Let's not have this conversation at all.
Okay. Let's
great.
talk about Awkwafina some more.
No. I think it's that thing of like maybe the stereotype has to be even more pronounced for
more
it to
obvious.
Be on my radar.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe.
The offense
I
has
don't know.
to be even greater for us to notice because maybe we're so used to it that we're just not tuned in as much.
Or I don't know. I mean, I have a variety of friends and people in my life who aren't friends, but they're there anyway, who, some are urban, some are very, very urban. And everyone's got a different mode of speech. Yeah, I don't know. I'll just say, like, I didn't put Awkwafina's performance in Crazy Rich Asians into a category that was like, whoa, what are we doing here? Who are you?
I guess it's just part of the whole. So Awkwafina has built her brand apparently on caricatures of Black life and culture, including, according to Keika Araujo in Black Enterprise, noted that her caricatures include a sassy Black girl. What's the word I'm looking for? Approach and the Black said, but she has Awkwafina has not really said anything about it when people have called on her about it. So I know that when she was in, what was that movie, Shang-Chi, somebody asked her about it, and she sort of vaguely answered that, I'd like to talk about it more. It's very complicated, I guess, was sort of her response. And some of her fans defend her, saying that she developed the accent due to her childhood growing up in Queens, but her hometown in Queens was mainly white and Asian, and her high school was only 9% Black.
I'm going to call bullshit on that.
Yeah. It seems like that's kind of bullshit. So,
I saw a thing in Twitter which I felt was probably true, and that is that the people who were rushing to Awkwafina's defense are white people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so true. It's white people saying, I mean, who knows, right? Because it's Twitter. You don't know the color or the culture of the person who tweeted. But it probably is white people that are like, well, whatever. And yeah, so.
Yeah. I agree with the point you're making that it's white people defending someone they perceive as
being unfairly
doing something
attacked.
They themselves might do. Yeah. And Awkwafina's use of Black accent or aave, which is African American vernacular English, was inconsistent, leading people to further question its authenticity. Alyssa Shotwell for the Mary Sue observed that Awkwafina, quote, changed out of aave on occasion, dropping the vernacular while doing press for her award-winning film The Farewell in 2019. All of a sudden, she dropped the aave just in time to contend in award season, Shotwell wrote. She made it, and she didn't need to hold up a facade anymore. She became Nora Lum again, which is her real name, Nora Lum.
Right. And, I'd love to see her address all this more directly. I know she did on Twitter, yeah.
We will get into that, the apology or the whatever it is.
That's the whole point of our show.
That's right.
That's right. But, I'd love an explanation that, and here I'm going to create the explanation. Awkwafina is a character in the same way that Borat is a character of, I'm already forgetting his real name, right? And that the accent is part of the character of this Asian American urban girl. Sure, okay, I could maybe buy into that. But I haven't heard that.
Borat, what's his background?
He is British. Is he Israeli British?
I mean, is he Borat's supposed to be what? Russian?
Oh, Ukrainian or something, yeah.
And he's not Russian. The Sacha Baron Cohen or whatever his name is not Russian.
It may as well be Russian, but it's more like Kyrgyzstan. Is that where he's from? I think.
Kyrgyzstan? Okay.
Kyrgyzstan. somewhere. It's a real country. They're actually proud that he's used them.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes everything more complicated.
He's their number one export. Well, none of us is easy, and we live in this outrage culture at the moment. And for some things, I get outraged, and for other things, it's like I don't understand why we're outraged. And this cultural appropriation starts to get into this area where it's like, yeah, for sure, I can see there's some outrage here, but then I have questions, and a lot of the questions are, as somebody who wants to be an ally and be supportive of marginalized people, I want to make sure I don't accidentally do something that's culturally inappropriate or cultural appropriation. Right. And it's not.
Or that if you do, you realize it and you make an apology, right?
Yeah. And I could fix it, or I can be like, no, fuck you. I wouldn't.
Speaking of no fuck you, Korean-American screenwriter William Yu said, "It puzzles me that Awkwafina still has not acknowledged how she has used black culture to her benefit. This refusal to own up exacerbates audiences," that's a weird use of that word, "exacerbates audiences that want to support her. A statement is not career suicide. There will be no boycott. Why refuse the chance to demonstrate empathy?" So, she's apparently has used this facade, I guess, this imitation of black culture to get to where she is. And now that she has gotten there, she does not use it much anymore. She doesn't use it in her comedy show, or her didn't use it in her comedy show, Nora from Queens. And she didn't use it in the latest film that she was in, I think, which was a Disney animated film called Raya and the Last Dragon, which I don't know anything about, which got her the nomination for an NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Character Voiceover Performance, which is surprising. Although the award is not exclusive to black people in Hollywood, the nomination upset many people, as of course they believe that her career was built on mocking black people. And she has said that she won't do Asians. She won't do accents that mock Asians. "I refuse to do accents," she said. "I'm not okay with someone writing the Asian experience for an Asian character. Like, that's annoying. And I make it very clear. I don't ever go out for auditions where I feel like I'm making a minstrel out of our people." What an interesting choice of words.
Well, right. One, an interesting choice of words. And then two, this is where things start to get a little more complicated for me personally, because I could say, well, yeah, great, you created an urban character. Maybe one could even use the word caricature of, an Asian American, blah. Do these types of people who speak that way, Asian Americans from an urban environment, exist, where AAVE would be a very natural speaking mode? Yep, cool, absolutely, right? So maybe that's what's going on. But then that statement, that's where it's like, okay, we're getting a little hypocritical there.
Exactly.
But before I want to round that out a little bit. So I'm looking for this bit. That statement comes from an interview in Vice magazine, or Vice website, from 2017. And we'll just start with their opening paragraph, because I think it really encapsulates the rise of Nora Lum's career, and then to the question that led to that answer, because there's an important part that gets left out of that quote, and for me adds some nuance. We'll dive into it. So this is from Vice 2017. The reporter was also an Asian woman. "To say that comedian, rapper, and artist Nora Lum, known by her stage name Awkwafina, is on the come up is an understatement. Lum started rapping while she was studying jazz at LaGuardia High School, and in 2014, the video of her song My Vag, a response to Mickey Avalon's My Dick, went viral, kicking off her rap career. Since then, she's released a full-length album titled Yellow Ranger, is the host of her own talk show Talk, T-A-W-K, wrote a book about New York City, was featured in a 2016 documentary about Asian American rappers titled Bad Rap, and became a major Hollywood actress. And then there follows a series of Q&A. It's pretty standard stuff. What's it like to be famous? Aren't you so surprised? Yes, I am. Question: are there any rules that you wouldn't accept? Answer: I've walked out of auditions where the casting director all of a sudden changed her mind and asked for accents. I refuse to do accents. And I'd like to think so far, like a lot of the other parts I've gone out for, they've been really real characters, and being Asian is not a part of the plot line. I'm okay with having an Asian aspect if it's done in a genuine way. I'm not okay with someone writing the Asian experience for an Asian character. Like, that's annoying, and I make it very clear I don't ever go out for auditions where I feel like I'm making a minstrel out of our people. So what I'm liking there is this bit of she's auditioning, open call. She walks into a room to read Sally Jones, best friend of the main character. And the casting director sees her and says, "Oh, God, could you do this with a Chinese accent?" Well, that's not how the character is written. And that's when she would say, "Yeah, no, I'm going to not do that, and I'm going to leave." So, okay. For me, that's a little different than the last line of the quote, which is really the poison in all of this. I don't ever go out for auditions where I feel like I'm making a minstrel out of our people. So I get the angst, the anger of, oh, I walk into a room and all of a sudden I have to be, Madame Fu and put on some Chinese accent. No, thank you. But then on the other hand, it's also, well, yeah, but yeah, there are using this accent here that's not yours. And for a while there, I totally bought into the whole, oh, she's from Queens and she probably grew up in a real urban environment. And then, diving in, it's like, no, she didn't.
Yeah, not really.
Not at all. Not a bit. Only 2% of her friends could have been black. That's stupid. That's how math works, though. 2% of the population in her neighborhood was black. Therefore, only 2% of her friends could be black.
No, I got you.
Yeah.
So she, after she was nominated for the NAACP award, and at the start of Black History Month, interestingly, she diverts the attention to herself with an apology. And I will read the apology. So she said, "There is a socio-political context to everything." And this is a Twitter apology, so famous Twitter apology. "There's a socio-political context to everything, especially the historical context of the African-American community in this country. It is a group that is disproportionately affected by institutionalized policies and law enforcement policies, all the while having historically and routinely seen their culture stolen, exploited, and appropriated by the dominant, emphasis hers, culture, for monetary gain without acknowledgement nor respect for where those roots come from, the pioneers of its beginnings, and the artists that perfected and mastered the craft. It is a problem we still see today, though some may pass it off as a convoluted mixture of the internet TikTok slang generation that liberally uses aave." Did I skip something? No. Though some may pass it off as a convoluted mixture of the internet TikTok slang generation that liberally uses aave to add that hip-hop, a genre of music that is ubiquitous and beloved across the country, has now anchored itself as a mainstream genre in music history. And in life, linguistic acculturation, immigrant acculturation, and the inevitable passage of globalized internet slang all play a factor in the fine line between offense and pop culture. But as a non-black person of color, I stand by the fact that I will always listen and work tirelessly to understand the history and context of aave, what is deemed appropriate or backwards toward the progress of any and every marginalized group. But I must emphasize, to mock, belittle, or to be unkind in any way possible at the expense of others is simply not my nature. It never has, and it never was. My immigrant background allowed me to carve an American identity off the movies and TV shows I watched, the children I went to public schools with, and my undying love and respect for hip-hop. I think as a group, Asian Americans are still trying to figure out what that journey means for them, what is correct and where they don't belong. And though I'm still learning and doing that personal work, I know for sure that I want to spend the rest of my career doing nothing but uplifting our communities. We do this first by failing, learning, acknowledging, hearing, and empathizing, and I will continue tirelessly to do just that.
I really want to...
I was just going to say, it seems like she's trying to make it seem like her adoption of the black scent was really just her adoption of mainstream culture, what has now become mainstream, and that she doesn't apologize in the first place. So as looking at it from the perspective of an apology, it's not going to do very well because there's no apology. She does say that, it's not her intention to hurt anybody or whatever, but her intentions are not irrelevant, but less important than what she did. She should be aware of what she's done, and she does not seem to be aware of what she's done.
Right. Or she should be able to answer in a way that that justifies her understanding of why it was okay for her to do it. Right.
Right.
Give us the reason why you did it. And then we can say, that's stupid and you're horrible. Or we can say, oh, okay. But I mean, that's when you can have the conversation. What she's done is touch upon it and put up a wall, delete her Twitter account. And I get it. Twitter's not the place to go in and have conversations. Twitter's the place to go in and tweet and get upset.
Her statement, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense at some points. Nope. Like, she starts to say something and then obviously tries to say something else, and it gets all confused, and she doesn't really make the point that I think she was trying to make. So it's confusing, and that does not help it. And
importantly, she also doesn't use any slang in there. Here's somebody who's perfectly capable of using standard American English, non-accent, well, slight accent, but, like Northeast accent.
Right.
So, yeah, I've heard an interview with her because I was curious as to what's her real voice like. And and I'll say she's a very thoughtful, very insightful person who values her family and her sanity was the word she used, and then sort of brought it out to be like her mental health. And so there's this crazy thing, as we know, being 220 in the comedy charts in Ireland, that instant fame can be a real mindfuck. And instant fame with a lot of money. Well, I don't know how much money she got, but more than she had, right? Instant fame with a lot of money is life-changing. And then there's this thing of, oh, I'm famous because everybody likes me. And then what do when all of a sudden it's like, oh, God, people aren't really liking me because of the thing that I did that got me all the attention. And I don't know. That'd be very hard to work through. But in her interview, she was saying that, and it was with, oh, my God, it's completely right out of my head.
Terry Gross.
No. Oh, God, I would love for that. That's an interview, right? It was a comedian. It's not.
Mark Maron.
No, he's black, and it's gone. It's gone. Kevin Hart.
Okay.
Kevin Hart.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Kevin Hart was interviewing her, and they were having this conversation about like, oh, fame and blah. And this was pre-Black Scent stuff. But importantly, he didn't bring it up.
Interesting.
Yeah, at the time, it wasn't even with Awkwafina there with him. It wasn't even a thing to ask. And,
do you know when that interview happened?
I don't. I should have looked at it.
Curious.
It was on Apple Podcast, and I could find it if I looked it up. But then I have to do two things at once and talk and type. No, not going to happen.
That's okay.
But I was really impressed with her concern around keeping a normal life happening in the face of this whirlwind of fame and attention and cash.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I'd be that person. I think I would be
I wonder
like,
what a normal life would look like in the face of fame, attention, and cash.
I guess so what she said was she had noticed that her dreams always involved being in some sort of a casino, hotel, airport structure, and she's walking from one point to the other point, but she can't get to the end point. She's just constantly in motion. And so she'd spent a year traveling and on the road, and she said, she realized that she was really missing her grandmother and her father. Her mother died when she was 4 years old. And so her grandmother is the primary female influence in her life. And that she recognized that she needed to prioritize them.
I see.
More so than traveling and touring. And so that's when it was kind of like, what am I doing? So she's self-aware is the point, I think, that we could put up on a chalkboard, right? She's self-aware. So, and I, on one hand, on the show, it's like we really are only rating the apology. But on the other hand, it is sort of also like, well, the thing that happened is also important, and gets, I don't know, it doesn't get rated, but it should be thought through. So I don't know. I mean, okay. Take cultural appropriation, right? Let's put Awkwafina to one side. We can come back and rate her apology. So cultural appropriation, what is it?
I'm sorry, what did you say? What is it?
What is it?
I had a glitch in my computer. I do have a definition of cultural appropriation, and if I can find it, it's gone. Hold on.
Well, right, and it's that thing of, this is called filler. I'm real good at it.
I found it.
We all know it when we see it, but then there are degrees. Right. So what is it?
Cultural appropriation is the inappropriate or unacknowledged adoption of an element or elements of one culture or identity by members of another culture or identity. This can be controversial when members of a dominant culture appropriate from minority cultures. So if you're going to limit it, I have read that it is not limited to members of a dominant culture appropriating from minority cultures. And if you do think that it is, then the question comes up, because she's a person of color herself, is it possible for her to appropriate another culture in this negative sense? And that leads to the question, well, which is there a hierarchy of cultures, so to speak, with like white on top being the dominant culture? What's the next dominant culture? And, if you're appropriating down, or are you appropriating up, so to speak? Is it okay then if you're appropriating white culture if you're not white? Obviously,
again, too, yes. What is white culture? I mean, it's everything. Do we even
have white culture? Yeah, right.
Right, because then, is it French culture or German culture? Which white are we doing?
Right.
Yeah, it's. But I like that point of putting not a value, but a ranking on cultures, and it's all power. That's exactly what it is. It's who has access to power and who doesn't have access to power. And when somebody who has access to power gains more power by using tools, language, dress of another culture that's already being stepped on.
Right.
Then there's a problem. Then that's the problem.
The problem, according to Kirsten Johnson, says that the imitator who does not experience the oppression of the other culture is able to play temporarily a, quote, exotic other without experiencing any of the daily discriminations faced by other cultures. So if you're appropriating and fetishizing cultures, it alienates the culture that you're appropriating, and it does harm to it, which is interesting.
Yeah, and I like that question of, is Awkwafina / Nora Lum is she appropriating culture
so that
because she's a woman of color?
Right.
Well, I guess all of that.
I don't know what the answer is, unfortunately. And you brought up earlier whether it's cultural appropriation to eat pasta. And
right.
I don't know the answer to that either.
That slippery slope. Yeah. So I've got a list. It's a short list, right?
Okay.
Of things, and just things to think about, right?
Okay.
And what I want to be very careful here is to let the listening audience know I am not building a case for approval of cultural appropriation.
Okay.
But I think it's a gray area, and it could get real slippery. So Pasta. Is that cultural appropriation? I'm not Italian. I love making an Italian dinner. Full-on Italian dinner.
Are you appropriating the culture and avoiding... Well, it's interesting. So are you avoiding the negative stereotypes of that culture and the oppressions of that culture? So at this point, you can't really say that Italians are oppressed, but at a point in the past, you could have said that. So at that point, people were eating pasta that were not Italian. Was it cultural appropriation to eat pasta at that time? Maybe. Now I would say no.
Right. Now it's like, okay, that's instantly off the table. It's like, oh, you're being silly, Theo. Stop it.
That's the gut reaction. Yes.
Chopsticks. I always use chopsticks when I eat Asian food, as I told you in pre-show. I love Asian food, and I love using chopsticks. It's super fun. I don't use chopsticks when I eat Italian food.
I think depending on how it's used, it could be considered pretentious by some people.
Yeah, I get accused of that a lot.
But as far as cultural appropriation, I don't think so. I don't think there's harm, and maybe the not intention, but the actual harm is something that should be considered when considering whether something is being culturally appropriated.
And it's only the pretentious part that was like, oh my God, that alarmed me. If somebody was like, you're appropriating culture, it's fine. They're chopsticks. I'm happy. I do it at home alone. It's fine. Straight out of
chopsticks. I eat with chopsticks too. I mean, it's fun. That's why I do it, But
yeah,
only
I never thought about being pretentious. You're right. It is a little precious. Okay, so hair braids and going from cornrows to any type of a hairstyle that is specific to a culture. The Swedish people have that braid they wrap around their head. Not all Swedish people, but you know what I mean.
I think if it's using the hairstyles that are traditionally considered African American, then it would be cultural appropriation because you're stealing down. Like I was saying before, the hierarchy is coming into play there. But with the Swedish people, I mean, Swedish people are about as white as you can get. So I wouldn't necessarily consider it cultural appropriation to braid your hair around your head.
Okay, all right.
That's my feeling.
Oh, totally get it. And let's see. How about, so then we start getting into dress, for instance, that horrible reboot of Sex and the City, which is called And Just Like That. There's some episode where Carrie Bradshaw, the main character, dresses in an Indian outfit to celebrate Diwali. Yeah.
Oh, really?
But she's invited to an Indian family's house or something, right?
Yeah.
And her best friend that no one's ever seen before helps her pick out a sari, and her friend is Indian. So it's sort of like, well, this is okay.
Well, if you're invited to participate by a person of that culture, then clearly it is not cultural appropriation.
Okay.
That's my feeling. Yeah.
All right. I'm with you there. As somebody who I don't come from a Scottish culture, but I'm married to somebody from Scotland, and my family is Scottish American, largely, right? And kilts, fine. Not like I've ever worn one, but I wouldn't be freaked out if somebody was wearing a kilt. It wouldn't bother me. So dress, but again, also, the Scottish culture is not being oppressed by American culture. I mean, maybe
by anyone.
By anyone, right?
I don't think.
Unless you talk to a Scottish person, then they would tell you there's too much American influence. Okay, so dress, maybe. Then we get into speech and borrowing other dialects. For instance, hello, Juliet. How are you doing today? Shine your shoes, Governor. Hello. Nice day. Nice to see you. Hello.
That could be considered punching down in some respects. But, but it's clearly a white culture. So I don't think a white person can appropriate it. And I think if a black person imitated it, it probably would be seen as mocking, but I don't think it would be cultural appropriation.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Okay. And that's sort of all I have, right? I mean, we could move into like art forms but I don't know enough about specific cultural pottery styles to say, if you flip a vase and do a little, what do I got? Right, nothing. So yeah, I mean, for me, it really does feel like the issue isn't cultural emulation or cultural appreciation. It's that, are you using something that doesn't belong to you that you're being rewarded for?
Right. Particularly, are you getting something out of it that you wouldn't otherwise at the expense of that other culture?
Right. And that thing that you're being rewarded for, would another person who belongs to that culture, would they be punished for it? Right. And so the short answer is yeah. That's where this is starting to get kind of like, sticky, not looking good, Awkwafina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I wish she had a better apology. And after her apology, I guess she got a bunch of criticism, so she left Twitter. She kind of stormed off of Twitter, which is unfortunate because she had said that she was willing to discuss it, but she really does not seem to be willing to discuss it.
Well, in fairness, a discussion on Twitter,
Yeah. But
of
she
this
could have come out with a better
magnitude.
statement.
For sure. She totally could have come out with a better statement, and she's got enough money to, and I'm not sure.
Hire someone to do it for her.
Yeah, or at least help her craft it, and maybe somebody did, but it would not have gotten past my desk, and
right.
the lowest bar there is. Like, if I'm saying bad, it's come on, honey. Yeah. Should we rate it or?
Yeah, let's rate it. Rate the apology. What do you give it?
It's a good solid 1.
Is it a 1? Are we allowed to give zeros? I guess we can do whatever we want.
Yeah,
I give it a 0.
Whatever you want. Yeah. I give it a 1. I like Awkwafina. I like her a lot. I like Nora Lum.
Yeah.
I think that she will come back and address this better. And maybe, I don't know if the NAACP award has been given
awarded,
or if she's, but that would be a fantastic place to address this issue.
That's a good point.
And to offer an apology and to, publicly recognize that the world is unfair. I benefited. It wasn't mine to benefit from, and I'm sorry.
And then to stop doing it. That's the important thing.
Yep.
She'll have to
stop doing it.
Being Awkwafina, which is kind of a risk.
Change the accent.
I guess.
Well, I think she's done enough non-Awkwafina roles to sort of she's got some chops, as we like to say in Hollywood, because I'm such a part of Hollywood. So she'll do all right.
You think she'll survive? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think she'll survive. And actually, it's how you made it. The minute there's a controversy around you or what you've been doing, it's like, oh my, people are paying attention to me. Too much attention now.
So we're participating in Awkwafina's fame. We
are participating by knocking her down and dragging her.
So that's a 0.5 out of 10 for the apology.
So in all of this, are you sure about that math?
Yes.
Did you use a pen and paper?
No, I could do it in my head.
Or a calculator? You're which? So I did listen to a podcast at the party when I was talking to the fabulous Gen Z girl, right? I mean, wow, she was great. It was like talking to you. I remembered everything about being 21 while I was talking with her, right? All the feelings, all of the excitement of the world, all the ideas, all the questions, and none of her insight, none of her thought, none of it was stupid.
That's great.
It was like, wow, I hadn't thought of it in those terms. She had one where she said that she wasn't sure if she would consider it code switching, but she'd noticed that she changes her pitch when she's speaking with men as opposed to speaking with women. And that when she's speaking to a man and she wants something, the octaves go higher.
It goes up. Yeah.
Yep. And then we got into, I mean, that never would have occurred to me at all. Hair color, dyeing her hair, right? So she is blonde.
Oh, yeah.
I think she's a natural blonde. But anyway, she had blonde hair and then went dark, right? And that whole experience. And, then the question became, well, brunettes don't have a culture. We make it. Is that cultural appropriation? Is that taking a hair color, doesn't belong to you? Well, I don't. I mean, no, not really. But then, because you're doing that, one, because you want to, right? But you're also doing that to promote a result, which is whatever your expectations are around. If I have this hair color, this is what's going to happen to me. And usually that expectation goes with brunettes going blonde. And suddenly the world's going to get easier and everybody's going to find you sexy and you're going to get a lot of attention, which is what you want, you ugly brunette.
But that doesn't happen at the expense of blondes, though.
I mean, I don't know, right? I agree.
Now, you don't harm other blondes by going blonde.
Every blonde joke that I have ever heard is running through my head right now. So unfair, but we'll skip that. So, probably not cultural appropriation there. But then she said that she's noticed that women who denigrate other women in front of men in a male-dominated situation, right?
Yeah.
Are doing that in her viewpoint, which hadn't occurred to me at all, because by doing that, by denigrating other women in front of men, you're playing into misogyny and being hopefully accepted into the male group by, we hate women too. Get over here, lady. So, interesting.
But unfortunately, you'll never be accepted into that group, and the misogyny is always going to be pointed at you, no matter how much you denigrate other women. So, people try to do it, but it never works.
Wow, I didn't even know that was a thing. I mean, it makes sense that it is a thing, it was it's the first I'd ever heard of it, first ever realized it, and whatever with all of that. I did find all of her points really intriguing and interesting.
She sounds very cool.
Oh, this whole podcast could be about how cool she is. She's still alive. And then she recommended, when we got on to podcast, right? And she said, hey, have you heard of this podcast? And I was like, apologies accepted. Yes, I have. Which was You're Wrong About. And I was like, yeah, of course. Please.
Oh, yeah, I know that one.
You think I was born yesterday? And she said they had done one on Ebonics. And I was like, sold. And I listened to it yesterday. Yeah. And I learned so many cool things about Ebonics. And so this idea that aave and Ebonics, right, is a lesser form of English that belongs to lesser people, grows out of course, white dominant culture's view of black people and racism. And so there was a school district in Oakland in 1996 that applied for a bilingual federal grant because most of their students, 52%, spoke with a Black American dialect, right?
I remember this. I was here at the time.
Oh, yeah, right. This would be a lot more on your radar. And so the entire country went mental. There were 2,500 newspaper articles, so pre-internet-ish. I forget if 1996 there were computers flying around, but and oh gosh, and there was another big thing. Oh, which was more than the O.J. Simpson trial.
Wow.
Yeah. So wow, and kind of what came out of that was in the educational system, black children were more often than not put into special education classrooms based on their language use. That it seemed that the child could not understand past tense. It seemed like the child did not understand how to use plurals, right? Whatever, just language stuff.
Right.
And so random bits that I thought were really cool that I still remember. In AAVE, there's the use of the word be, state of being.
Yeah.
If you say he be early, right, that does not mean he is early today to the party. He arrived early to work today. He be early means that is a character trait. He's always early. He is early all the time, everywhere, for everything. He be early is a character trait. So when a child was corrected by typically a white teacher, no, it's he is early. Well, is a singular event. Is he is early today. Right. It's the exception when you use is. Oh, he's early today, but not any other day, right? And so the kids would say, no, that's not what I mean. But because they were kids, they weren't able to explain or flesh it out, right?
Right.
So problems there. And then the use of plurals. So whoever the linguist was, who was a woman of color, sorry, I don't remember her name because I was just doing casual listening, said that most AAVE grammatical structure takes its roots from a language in the Congo. And that in the Congo region, I don't know if it's a region or how big it is, don't use plurals when you're given a quantity. So the difference between 50 cent in AAVE or 50 cents in standard American English is the S, clearly, right? But if you know it's 50, you don't have to double plural it. That's grammatically incorrect.
Right.
And so really, really interesting. And of course, that's how they were able to prove that or demonstrate that AAVE is actually a language versus a dialect, because there's grammar and syntax, pronunciation rules. And I'm not a linguist, so I'll just stop there, right? Grammar and syntax.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought wow, that's very cool. I would like to know more. But then what would happen is I would learn more, and then I would start saying things like, he be early.
Right.
Not to be cool, but because I find it interesting, right? In the same way that hola, cool to know.
Is that cultural appropriation? I don't know. We need to restrain ourselves.
Well, we are here to learn and grow, to be allies, to support, and to mock. And we mock ourselves more than anybody else. So, we're not going to get any trouble for this. We're not 1,000% sure, but we're also not cultural influencers other than Ireland and Indonesia. And then within all this, right, I guess the question I'm asking is, where do you draw the line? And I want to know because, not that I think I'm in any danger of ever crossing the line, but I just want to see if the line moves and where and under what conditions. So have you heard of a show called Kim's Convenience?
Yes. I've not seen it, though.
Oh, super cute. I love it. It's great. And so all of this is going to tie together in a big bow, and you're just going to be like, bravo, Theo, bravo. Thank you. Yep. So Kim's Convenience is a Netflix show, but a Canadian TV series that followed the life of a Korean-Canadian family. They own a convenience store. The parents are from Korea. The children were born in Canada. Sweet show, right? Mm-hmm. And the stars of the show, when the show ended, and it ended abruptly for the stars. They were unaware that the show was not going to be renewed. And they were quite upset. And they had some issues around white writers writing storylines for Korean people. And there were some things that, they said, the actors all said, no, we're not going to do that because a Korean person would not do that, right?
Right.
And what was interesting to me was the two of the leads, who are both Korean Canadians, have standard North American accents. Yet when they were doing the show, they had Korean accents. Right? And so okay, cool. You are Korean. If I put on a Scottish accent, maybe I could get away with it. Right? 'Cause I got the blood tie. All right, that's fine. But I think it's pronounced Simu Liu, who is the lead in the Marvel movie Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings, which co-starred Awkwafina. That's how we're getting back here.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, he's Korean, but he was playing a Chinese actor. Right. And then he's a Chinese actor who is a superhero whose superhero powers are kung fu, martial arts, right? I mean, there's a lot of like Tai Chi stuff, controlling energy and whatever, right? And I'm not going to get into it, but why not laser eyes? Why not?
Right.
Why not? I don't know. What's another superpower? All I can think of are laser eyes.
Invisibility.
Invisibility. Thank you. That's a superpower. Why not that? Why does it have to be martial arts? But at the same time, then it's like, well, martial arts is coming out of Asia, and so is the issue then perhaps? Can a Korean actor portray a Chinese person? And it's like,
wow.
I don't know, but I sort of know if you're gonna call out cultural appropriation, then you might not want to be doing things that could be seen as cultural appropriation yourself.
Yes, that's a good point.
Yes, not to turn this all around on Simu Liu now, right?
Right.
And it's not that it's confusing to me. The Hallmark Channel was very confusing to me, and my stance on that was very alarming. I listened to that episode, and I was like, damn, I'm invested in that channel, and I haven't watched it in probably over a year now. But yeah, it's, so I'm going to say personally, I don't think that's cultural appropriation if Simu Liu, who is Korean, plays a Chinese character. Remember Mrs. Baldwin? Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that one gets a little.
That's definitely cultural appropriation.
Oh, 1,000%.
No question.
It's 100 times 100.
I don't know how I feel about the Korean gentleman playing a Chinese person. I think I would have to ask a Chinese person how they felt about it. I would feel like it probably should be a Chinese person playing a Chinese person, but I don't feel like I have a leg to stand on in that argument.
Well, I mean, my favorite expression, I don't have a dog in that fight.
Right.
Right. I don't know. And it's really not. The only reason it's even like it crossed my mind is that Simu Liu was so specific about the Korean experience in Canada and its portrayal on television and authenticity. And it's like, I get you. And I agree. Maybe a lot of people from England don't know what the Korean experience is in Canada. For sure. They shouldn't be writing.
Sure.
But
sure.
There they are. That's what you got to work with.
I guess those are the things you have to consider when asking yourself if something is cultural appropriation. Like who's responsible for it, who's participating in it, who benefits, how do they benefit, and who suffers as a result. So that's not very straightforward. It's very complicated. It
is very complicated, which is why we will never pick the subject up again.
Until next week, probably. If someone apologizes for something, we'll talk about it.
Right.
I guarantee. And speaking of which, do you have a who's sorry now or an apology expected?
I do. And are you ready? Because this is so good.
I might be ready.
You're ready because it's tied into our subject matter, right?
Very cool.
We'll say cultural appropriation. And so it's apology expected, but not because I think they owe an apology. I think they'll just be giving one in the future.
Okay.
So, let's see. This is straight from BuzzFeed News because I can't remember the names. And we'll just start with the Winter Olympics in full swing in Beijing, 2 athletes, skier Eileen Gu and figure skater Zhu Yi, have been trending in 2 different social media spheres. Both California-born athletes have been receiving intense backlash for changing their nationalities to compete for China. Gu, who's 18, and the other girl who, I don't know, I think she's like 19. She is 19. Both became Chinese citizens so that they could compete for China in their sports. And on Twitter, Suntan said, I'm a fan of Eileen Gu. Oh, sorry, it's Twitter. Anyway, somebody on Twitter said, hey, why are you in China? You grew up in San Francisco. And Eileen Gu replied, cry about it. So, so funny. But they've been getting criticism in China for not being able to speak Mandarin fluently, for having access to VPN and being able to post on Instagram when I'll say no one else in China can, but you know, millions of other people legally cannot. And so I anticipate an apology when they are too old to compete in Olympic sports, at the ancient age of 23. So in a few years' time.
What happens then when they decide they want to come back to America, but they're Chinese citizens?
Well, they have to apply for citizenship.
Wow.
Yeah, and
I don't resign. I guess they did have to give up their American citizenship.
Well, so America, I don't know about China, but the U.S. doesn't allow for dual citizenship. But at the same time, they don't force you to renounce
it. Yeah.
Right. And so I happen to know for British people in the States, British people anywhere in the world, if you can have another nationality. You can be a citizen of 2 countries as far as Britain is concerned, right? But if you want to renounce your citizenship, you have to take your British passport. This is so British. Into a British embassy.
Yeah.
And you have to lay it down on a desk, and you have to formally declare that I renounce my British citizenship. I am no longer a citizen of Britain. And then they say, all right, then, here you go. Get out.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so I think after they're no longer able to compete in sports, it's going to be, and I could be wrong, maybe they're going to be like, wow, China's amazing. But I think after a while, it's going to be like, I really miss Facebook. Yeah. I really miss Instagram. But maybe not. Maybe they're just going to be awesome and have a lovely life. But I anticipate we're sorry. However, and so because I'm not a sports person, today's Super Bowl day, tomorrow's Valentine's Day to mark our period in time here. Yeah. I do know that like people compete on national teams and switch. So the U.S. has a bunch of foreign-born athletes who are competing in the Olympics, and people aren't upset about it. And there are apparently 3 white guys who are competing on the Chinese hockey team, and they're not getting any flack. But I don't know that they became Chinese citizens, and I don't know if you have to be I guess you have to be a citizen to compete on the team, right? But so it's not uncommon. It's not that these 2 girls like joined ISIS, right?
Right.
They did something that a lot of sports figures do. But yeah, again, I think there'll be I'm sorry, America, that I betrayed you.
Probably. We'll see. We'll see in a few years.
I could be wrong. What about you? Who's sorry now? Apologies expected.
I have an apology expected, and it's not related to the topic at hand, but it is IBM. I expect an apology from IBM. In recent years, former IBM employees have accused the company of age discrimination, saying that IBM tried to replace thousands of older workers with younger ones. And now it seems that top IBM executives were directly involved in the discussions about the need to reduce the portion of older employees at the company, sometimes disparaging them with terms like dino babies. They're calling people dino babies.
What? Like, I think it's cute, but
it's hilarious.
How? How does that make any sense?
That?
Right, but
I don't know. Why not just dinosaurs?
Yeah, I mean, dino babies.
So there's a bunch of previously sealed documents were made public by a federal district court on Friday that show executives discussing plans to phase out older employees and bemoaning the company's relatively low percentage of millennials. And of course, the Federal Age Discrimination and Employment Act prohibits discrimination against people 40 or over in hiring and employment on the basis of their age. So this is all illegal, and I expect an apology or at least a settlement. So
a settlement. Everyone gets a free copier.
Yeah.
We're real sorry.
We will be hearing more from IBM about this one, I think. It's kind of scary being an old person, seeing that people want to get rid of me just because I'm old. But what are you going to do? I'm just a dino baby.
We live in a land of Logan's Run, where when you're 30, they throw you into carnival and you are exploded and turned into confetti, and everyone applauds. And coming from LA, yep. And it's a system I benefited from, and I knew I was benefiting from it when I was 20 to 40, and I knew it was going to turn around. And so I'm not sitting around crying because it's turned around. It's just a thing I have to accept. Is it fair? It is what it is.
It's what it is.
It is what it is.
On that note of wisdom, anything else before we wrap it up for the day?
No, I guess it's sayonara. Hi, I did that on purpose.
Oh, God. Help us. All right, everyone. See you next week. Thanks for everything. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Apologies Accepted, the podcast.
You can find links to the articles and the sources in the show notes.
To submit an apology or find out more, visit us at apologiesaccepted.net, where you can also find our merchandise.
We're on Twitter at Apologies Accepted.
And on Instagram at apologies.accepted.
You can support our important work at Patreon.com/Apologies Accepted.
And fuck Facebook.
Bye.
Bye.